Welcome to the revolution.
Zelensky's office confirming that the U.S. plans to train Ukrainian fighter pilots on F-15 and F-16 fighter jets, which I find to be interesting. About 3 to 5 days ago, we saw a lot of news coming out of talks between Iran and Russia, with Iran allegedly in talks to give Russia a bunch of drones. And that sparked Biden getting on the microphone and fumbling through a sentence about how he basically thought it was wrong that anybody should be, funding a war that wasn't theirs. And I don't know if that was his exact words, but it seemed quite hypocritical when we're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars funding a war that is not ours by sending them, like literally your buddy's in a fist fight and you throw him a knife and allow him to stab the guy and expect the other guy's buddy over there not to give him a knife if he had one. Like, it makes no sense that they're so hypocritical with this. What do you expect? If you're going to spend 60, 70 billion dollars sending, Lord knows what over to Ukraine to give to Lord knows who, right? I mean, I think we do know who when that comes into context, right? When we talk about the new leaks from Hunter Biden's cell phone, which is going to be the very next episode, I believe, that we will do, is going to be a deep dive into what actually came in that leak. 456 gigabytes of data of Hunter Biden's 126,000 emails, pictures from, all sorts of sexual escapades and drug use, and his underage niece, who he allegedly had a sexual relationship with. I don't know. All sorts of crazy stuff came out of that. But another thing that came out of that was those emails from his account at Rosemont Seneca. Rosemont Seneca was Hunter Biden's investment firm that basically did a bunch of shady energy deals in Ukraine, peddling his father's influence through companies like Burisma. I was reading last night. I dove deep into this. That's why we're not doing it today, is because I have more to look into it before I put it together for you guys. But it's pretty wild. All of the connections between corporations, all of the things, all of the changes of money between Ukraine and the United States, the Biden family and Ukraine, China, all of it. So it's pretty wild. But anyways, $60 billion getting sent to Ukraine. We don't have any clue where it's actually going. But what we do know, and what's come out recently, is going to be the fact that Ukraine basically was peddling, they've been pushing out these weapons. There's been a backdoor exchange of money where these weapons have been found in other countries now. So basically we're sending hundreds of $60 billion over to Ukraine and tons of weapons, and talking about showing their fighter pilots how to fly F-15s and F-16s, and then also they're sending the same weapons out the door, the back door, and profiting from them that way as well. Who'd have thought? So I find that to be interesting, but let's go ahead and read this. And there's a reason that the F-15 is actually specifically important in this. It's not just the fact that, and I think that the UN has come out and said that they will not supply the F-15s. I wonder how many F-15s Ukraine had before this engagement. But apparently they're going to be training their fighter pilots on how to use them. And again, so we'll read this article real quick, and then we'll go back to actually why the F-15 is actually important, because there's a specific reason why. It's not just the fighting capabilities. It actually has to do with the radar system that attaches, that can connect with NATO. So that's one of the reasons, and we'll discuss what that actual radar system is. But this article goes on to say that Zelensky's office confirms U.S. plans to train Ukrainian fighter pilots on F-15 and F-16 fighter jets. Earlier, it says, according to the journalist, part of the amount should go to Ukrainian fighter pilots of the $840 billion defense policy bill that was passed from the U.S. House. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. According to the journalist, part of the amount should go to training Ukrainian fighter pilots. I wonder if that's supposed to be million? 840 billion? Oh my gosh. And this is coming from Yahoo News, so I can't imagine they had that big of a typo. But according to the journalist, part of this amount should go towards training the fighter pilots. The United States plans to train Ukrainian fighter pilots of the F-15 and F-16 fighter jets. This amendment to the U.S. fiscal year 2023 defense funding bill was supported by the House of Representatives. A total of $100 million is planned to be allocated for this. In turn, political scientist and publicist Andrei Piantovsky believes that this is an indirect confirmation that Ukraine will get U.S. fighter jets as military aid to defend Russia. However, it is still difficult to say when exactly this may happen. I believe they've come out and said, like the UN has come out and said specifically that they're not going to, they have an unofficial agreement not to actually send the fighter jets over to Ukraine. We'll see how long that goes. But so the actual specific reason that this is important, and I saw this from a conversation on Reddit discussing this thread, where they went into the actual reason why this is important. So let's read what that is. Somebody talks about it being a specific reason due to the radar usage. But this actually goes on to say that, let's read the first comment first, which says Ukraine will need replacement systems for almost all of their Soviet era equipment eventually. Russia sure won't sell them anything. The F-16 is the logical replacement for their aging MiG-29s. It's tried and tested technology, which is well suited for Ukraine's current needs. They don't need some deep strike stealth jet. They need something reliable to protect their own airspace. Maybe training fighter pilots will take a while, but waiting until all their MiG-29s are either shot down or simply won't fly due to lack of spare parts might not be the prudent thing to do. Maybe they won't get F-16s, but it's good thinking to at least have the option rather than being out of options. Now, this is the part that I find to be most interesting. It says it might be mentioned elsewhere, and I'll get buried anywhere, but the real capability leap here is that these airframes are designed to network with NATO radars in a way that the aircraft currently in Ukraine's inventory are not. Those big old flying radomes are quite handy for blowing things away over the horizon, not going to be pretty for our Russian friends. It says it's called data link. So that's the actual radar type that is allowing the NATO individuals to be able to utilize the radar facilities or the radar data that's going to be coming from these F-15s. So it says that it's called data link, and it's basically like playing with cheat codes on if there's AWACS in the sky or any friendly planes, all sharing sensor data amongst each other. So it's basically going to allow them to see their airspace much more clear, to see who's around and how to actually properly approach it from the airspace perspective by having the F-15. So it's not just the fighting capabilities, right? It's not just the fact that they can now, go up against the fighter jets of Russia. It's actually that they can utilize the radar facilities and the radar capabilities of the F-15 to now fight back with that data. So I thought that to be interesting, right? Now, I still think it's funny, the hypocrisy that came out of this between Ukraine getting all of the $60 billion and Biden specifically funding it, and then him coming out and, critiquing Iran for even considering the fact that they might give drones to Russia. It's like, what do you expect, right? Everybody has allies. And when you have half the world funding this war between a large nuclear superpower and Ukraine, which is basically a subsidiary of the UN and the United States by proxy, what do you expect? They have their own allies who are going to fund them, right? Like I said, if there was a fist fight that happened in the bar between your buddy and then some random guy and you throw him a knife, don't be surprised when his buddy throws him a knife or even a gun, right? Like, it's kind of expected here. So I think that's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see if we actually do supply the F-15s. I don't know why they wouldn't at this point with the way that, we've funded basically the entirety of this war. You go look at the list of people who have sent money to Ukraine, and it's like the United States has sent like $70 billion. If this article's right, that number went from 70 billion to like 840 billion. I don't think that's correct though. I believe it was million is what they meant to say. So Yahoo News, if you need an editor, give me a shout. I'll help you out.